So one of the questions I asked early on was, is it possible for us to eliminate seasonality from our business? And it ends up we did just that.
Join us for Impact Live 2024 in Hartford, Connecticut this October 14th through the 16th. Over 3 days, business owners, CEOs, and marketing and sales leaders will learn proven strategies to drive business growth. Attend expert-led sessions on marketing, sales, leadership, and AI, and get a chance to network with industry pros just like yourself. Discover how companies like yours are dominating their markets. Secure your spot at impactplus.com/impact-5. And for all of our Endless Customers listeners, we have an exclusive discount code that'll save you $100. So when you're on the checkout page, just enter the code ECPOD100 in all caps for $100 off. We'll see you there at Impact Live 2024 up in Hartford, October 14th through the 16th.
Welcome back to Endless Customers, the show that teaches you how to earn trust and win more business in the age of AI. I'm your host, Alex Winter, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Marcus Sheridan. He's a keynote speaker, author, and a partner here at Impact. Marcus, welcome back to the show, my friend.
All right, here we go. It's been too long. Let's make it happen.
Yes, it's been too long. I'm pumped you're here. We have a great topic today, and it's an important one. We're talking about the home service industry, but specifically we're talking about the off-season, the dreaded dip that tends to happen every year, and what is the best way to manage those cycles and how to stay ahead of the curve or try to be ahead of those dips, and what's the best way to handle it. So what's a good place to start here with the off season?
Well, let me say this, right? So I started as a swimming pool company in 2001, and in Virginia, that there's a significant off season when it comes to anything that's outside like that. So
Right.
I've lived this. And anything I say right now is just based on personal experience. But of course, now I've worked with so many other companies. I've got some thoughts, and we'll see if they're helpful to anybody. So one of the goals that I set early on, Alex, was I said, it seems to me like right now nobody is getting pools installed in December, in January, and parts of November, parts of February. I said, is it possible that we could eliminate much of this quote off season? And what I found was many pool builders in Virginia they had an off season that was more based on what sales were dictating, not as much what the weather was allowing.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so what happened was, of course, we did the Ask You Answer, and along with that, we really incentivized homeowners to get their pool installed during the off season.
Okay.
And so now we've had multiple years where, and it used to be, I mean, a lot of pool companies in Virginia too, they'll take off the entire month of December and the month of January. Take it off.
Yeah.
Our team gets off 2 weeks at the end of December. They're installing pools half of December, and they're installing pools as soon as the clock strikes January 2nd. We are hitting the ground.
Gotcha.
Now, granted, we're affected by weather sometimes. Snow and can't get out there and get her done.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that means too things like, okay, we can't pour concrete patio until it warms up in February or March or whatever it is. But the point is, we've built enough lead flow so as to allow ourselves to install during that time, and we've incentivized homeowners to say, okay, you can come in here and sure, all right, yeah, my yard's going to be tore up during Christmas, but I've also saved a bunch of money. These guys have stayed busy, and it's a win-win, right? So I would say that's a big part of this, right?
Yeah. Can I ask a question? So
Sure.
You had said you were trying to book appointments for installs with the pools during the off season. So was that a strategic play as a business leader that you were we're getting all these orders in, let's stagger them out so that it fills us during our off season? Is that correct in saying that, or how did you navigate that?
Well, cash is king in business, and cash flow, it'll make you or break you.
Yeah.
And I just hated early on the seasonality of installing pools.
Hmm.
That's actually one reason. Might sound like a side note, but it does have application. To everybody's listening. That's one reason why we went aggressively towards fiberglass, because if you're installing concrete pools, you're much more affected by the temperature of the air. If
Right.
you're installing a vinyl liner pool, exact same problem. Colder
Hmm.
it gets, the more impossible it gets to install the pool. You just can't do it. Whereas a fiberglass shell can go in the ground at any point in time. If you can dig, you can install that pool. Might not be able to pour the patio, but you can install the pool. So it's like when you're thinking about your business, you want to potentially, if you think cash flow is going to be a problem consistently during the off season, you want to design it so as to mitigate that as much as possible. Fiberglass allowed us to mitigate that and become a year-round business when our competitors are not a year-round business.
Gotcha.
So this is, to me, it's quite significant. It was a really, really smart move by our company. And plus, I mean, we were big believers in fiberglass anyway,
Hmm.
for all of its other benefits. So that was nice for us. And stability is good for the homeowner, certainly good for the company.
Yeah.
Um, but you should be adding incentives so that they move. And my goal wasn't to spread it out so that during the busy season we were doing less and waiting to hold them for the off season. My goal was to just go hog wild during the busy season and still have enough sales
To
to
carry it. Yeah.
be at least busy enough to maybe break even during those slower months, like the Decembers and the Januaries, when it's just harder to harder to turn a profit as a company. So that was a pretty smart move. Another thing that we see with just businesses in general, when you build a brand, and this is why they ask you answer, and following that endless customers model is so helpful. When you build a brand, it allows you to pivot quickly and allows you to offer other services. So, for example, if you're a landscaper and in Cleveland, well, you might say, geez, winter sucks, you know, but that's when every single one of those landscapers tries to do snow removal, right? Many
Right.
of them do. But what allows you to add these types of services? Well, you got to have a brand. And when you have a brand and you have a database, let's say, you can start to offer services much faster than others so as to fill that void. This is why, going back to the age old recommendations, brand matters, database matters, customer base matters, and your ability to have the trust with them and therefore let them know, hey, we're now offering such and such, right? And now you potentially could move, product or services or whatever that thing is that you couldn't previously do. And so there's power in the brand. It always will be. I can't stress that enough. Your brand needs to become known, right? And the more known it is, the more influence you can have in other industries.
That makes so much sense. And I'm curious too with that, because you're right, the fundamentals stay the same. So like from a marketing and like leads perspective, what do you have to shift or like add on to like push towards those dips, or to like have these add-on services like, hey, we're as a landscaper, we do landscaping, but we're going to do snow removal. So like, how does that affect your marketing and like the strategy overall to like get more content out there and raise awareness?
Well, it's like a whole bunch of different ways we could take this. One is, the smart farmer doesn't wait till they're hungry to plant the seed,
Right.
and you can't do that either as a business. So the seed for you is all the marketing activity, as well as things like customer service, etc. But really, the marketing activity, that's your seed. That's your seed that you use to plant the field, and then you continue to nourish the crop so that when you're ready for the harvest, it's there for you. You're not trying to scramble, or you're not trying to grow the crops too quickly, because crops are crops. They're going to do what they do,
Right.
right?
Totally.
So you're not suddenly going to pivot and say, gosh, things are just slow during the winter. We better offer this other service. No, you should have been planting the seed in the summertime that you were doing. For example, you were tackling all the big five. If you've read the Ask You Answer, when it comes to that potential service you might be offering, right? So that's one thing you should be doing. You leading up to it, you should be starting to notify people well in advance. Hey, we've got these services, and if you sign up for such and such, then we'll do this. Adding incentive matters. I'd like to say incentive and urgency doesn't matter. People are just going to do what they do. No, it actually matters.
It
I mean,
does.
it always makes a difference. The human brain is still the human brain. It responds to stimuli like fear of loss, like opportunity gain, all these things. That's what it does. You also just want to say to yourself, what are other industries doing that we could be doing? An example of this is subscription models. Subscription models really powerful because they help just dictate cash flow. They allow you to say, I know it's coming in because it's steady. So, can you do a subscription model for snow removal? Of course you can. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Could you do a subscription model for some other service that you could offer during the off season? Once again, yes, you can, right? Or could you sometimes businesses that are extremely like seasonal, they have a subscription model that spreads out payments. And so now they're getting the payment throughout the year, almost like a teacher who might be off work during the summer, which they're never really off work, but if they might be off work during the summer,
Right.
they still get paid their typical salary, right? It doesn't change for them.
Hmm.
And so again, Cash King as a business, you want to create that constant, predictable flow of revenue. And any type of subscription model is very helpful with that. And I think almost every industry in the world is moving in that direction. Certainly things like pest control have moved in that direction, and you can move in that direction as well if you get creative. I don't think there's many where that it wouldn't be possible. I
Right.
mean, for most, it absolutely is possible.
Yeah. I like the two pieces that you said. The proactivity is huge. I feel like a lot of companies go like, oh, this is our slow season, and everyone just kind of
Sits back in their chair, and it's like to be expected. But if you're proactive,
that's huge. And then also cash flow, that's so true. Cash flow is what affects everything. So if figuring out a subscription model or some way to like have a spread of the cash flowing in versus like these huge peaks and valleys is going to make a big difference. But my question for you is, when is it like too late? When do you go like, I might have missed the boat here, and is it ever too late to like get into the saddle and try to get cash flow back and try to get some of these dips where they should be? Or like, do you need to focus on like, we missed this one, but let's be proactive for the next one?
Mm, I don't. I never like to say it's for something like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's too late. I mean, if somebody was looking at my swimming pool company in 2008 and looking at our cash position and where we were, they would have said it's too late. In fact, the consultants I talked to said it's too late, file bankruptcy.
Wow.
I'm glad I was hard-headed. It's either I was hard-headed or the fact that I just didn't have a plan B, and so therefore the only option was stay the course. It's funny, and this isn't an exact example, but let me just share an example.
Okay.
So within home improvement right now, things are slower. Just generally speaking, things are slower. And what used to work is working less. I was talking with a painting company the other day. In the past, they've always done traditional advertising, and they've done some pay-per-click. It just wasn't really working for them very well this year. And so finally, we convinced them to do Facebook advertising, which is, I mean, it's as targeted as you get, man. I mean, Facebook advertising is just wicked awesome if you do it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And they spent $5,600 on it, and in the first week they made $60,000 in sales, and they've
Wow.
got some other appointments still to go on. They'll probably land at around $120,000.
Wow.
And it was like this incredible lifeline for their business.
Yeah. Talk about the ROI in that. That's the
That's
investment.
just huge ROI.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And this is like for them now, most of their sales have been made like by this point usually by now, because we're late in the summer. So this was a huge, like, this is a big moment for them because late in the summer, they tried something different and they had a big win by switching to Facebook advertising. And I'm seeing Facebook advertising working more and more effectively for home improvement companies. Starting to become a big fan because of everything that it does. And you don't necessarily have to have a marketing agency do that for you. You know, you watch a couple YouTube videos, you can figure it out. You can
Right.
figure it out. I know it's changing all the time, but you can absolutely, you're not too, if you started a business, you could absolutely figure out how to do Facebook advertising. And, you know, it could be a lifeline or at least a bridge for your business to get you through that slow time.
Yeah.
So you just want to, you know, you want to be thinking about that. I think when I look at today's market, um, just all facets of business development, all facets of marketing, all facets of advertising are changing on the daily. I mean, they really are. Part of that's because algorithms are changing all the time. Some of these tools get better, some of these tools get worse. You know, just because Facebook is great today for home service doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be great in like 6 months. I can't say that. You know, it's no different than AI tools are changing every single day. You know, when we started in November 2021, ChatGPT was by far the best writing tool. You know, today, as we record this, Claude 3.5 Sonnet is a much better writing tool.
Totally.
That's not going to be the case in the future. They're going to leapfrog each other, and it's just going to continue to be a battle, right?
Hmm.
So you got to be really open to change. Got to be willing to pivot quickly. I would say don't give up on yourself though, and don't forget to that sometimes you just got to do some really hardcore like traditional selling, which is picking up the dang phone and offering your services to someone.
It still
Like
works.
literally,
Yeah, it still works. It
that
really does.
still actually works. And oftentimes people hide behind email
Yeah.
and they wonder why they're not closing more deals.
Hmm.
Pick up the phone, go meet with the person, go meet with the group, right? There's a ton of value in that. And even though a lot of people know me as a digital guy, what I am is a connection guy. And if you can connect the deepest and win more trust by being with them in person, well, send it, especially if your cash position is such that you need to think quick and you need quick results.
Right. No, that's extremely well said. And the digital piece, even though you're known for that and it's worked really well for you and for your pool company, it's just a tool in your tool belt to ultimately make those connections, build trust, and have the relationships you want to have to bring those leads in. And I think that's a huge point to make. So it's never too late. Everyone out there watching and listening, it's never too late. How about for people that maybe are in like California or Nevada or places where like the weather doesn't really affect some of these dips, but they're still having these dips happening? What would you say for people that are in those types of geographic ranges?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would say lucky you. But what's funny is in home improvement, almost all home improvement is seasonal around the country when it comes to interest levels.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. You take Arizona, okay? For swimming pools, 75% of leads for the year on average come from 3 months of that year.
Wow.
April, May, June. April, May, June.
Wow.
That's in Arizona. That's a desert, y'all. You know what I'm saying? And so, what that means is they oftentimes still have some of the seasonality of sales. You know, what's funny is you look at hot tubs. With hot tubs, they sell the best those exact same months that I just mentioned, April, May, June. But
Really?
yet they're the funnest to use, in my opinion, in November, in December, in January.
Totally, when it's cold. Yeah, me too. That's my favorite time to be in the hot tub. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So this is why, getting back to the farmer analogy, you just have to always be planting. If you look at like a great farmer, generally they're rotating their fields, they're rotating their crops. If you do the same crop in the same field for too long, it becomes stagnant and it doesn't continue to produce. That's why you've got to rotate crops, right? And you know, if you're doing it right, you're like, okay, we got corn this season, we got barley this season, and you just once again you're just thinking about like farmers are always thinking about how can I eliminate the seasonality. Businesses want to try to do that as well as possible also, right? It's hard to keep great employees if they're not year round. Anybody that's seasonal understands this. That's why like restaurants that are super seasonal, it's brutal for them. I'm just absolutely brutal for them.
So true.
And so you just need to figure out whatever it takes to keep somebody year round. Generally, especially with the market today, especially with the fact that teenagers are working less than they've ever worked before because their parents don't really expect them to have jobs. I'm generally speaking here. I'm not saying you personally, but generally, that market has changed. Used to be that the companies that needed someone for seasonality, especially like summer jobs, they would count on teenagers. You don't see that anymore. You can't count on the teenagers anymore. I mean, a huge portion of society has not had a job by the time they enter university, which to me is appalling, but that's not the subject of today's podcast.
No, it's not, but I would agree with you. My first job, I was 14, I think, and I wanted to work when I was that age. I was excited to get out and learn and get my hands dirty, So, but that's generationally that shifts, and it depending on what generation you're in, like there's always trends like that tend to shift, and especially with technology where it's at. But so there seems to be too, like, and I might be making this up, but in my head I feel like there's times in off seasons for home service companies where they're like, this is the off season, let's do like a 70% off flash sale, like buy go, like. Does that mentality work from a marketing standpoint to like, oh, if we're going into a dip, let's like give crazy discounts and like do anything we can to bring people in? Is that a smart play, or is there a way to do it where
if it's rooted in psychology? Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it works. Every single November, we send out an email to our list of leads for the previous couple of years. Okay, for our pool company. And essentially we say, it's the slow time of year, and that's a benefit to you. You may still be in the game. If you're in the game, don't wait till fall and prices are at the top. Spring. Get it now in the fall. Right? When prices are at their bottom, and we need to offer incentives to help people like you move and allow us to install this during the off season. So that absolutely works still. Yes. But it's got to be rooted in psychology, which again, oftentimes happens with FOMO, that fear of missing out.
Yes.
But every time I send that email out, I'm always shocked at how many responses we get. Even our sales team is like, I was sure this person was out. I was sure this person was like no longer interested. And lo and behold, they've been resurrected.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that off season, and I would recommend that you have, like a specific cadence for that as well, because it's certainly helpful.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think there are deal seekers out there, and people would be in the market to buy a product, but they're waiting for that moment. My wife's like that. She's a savvy shopper, as we say. She's always waiting for the deal. She's like, never buy anything full price, but that also depends on seasonality and different factors. So very interesting. I'm curious too. So you gave an example earlier about Facebook doing paid ads, which we know can really work well. Do you have any other examples of like clients you've been working with or people you've been speaking with? Because I know you're traveling a lot. You're speaking a ton in front of a lot of businesses where maybe people have been suffering from what we're talking about, and they figured out how to overcome these off-season obstacles.
Well, I mean, one that might sound self-serving. It's not. I mean, I had this amazing story. For those that have been paying attention, I developed a really incredibly simple pricing calculator that you can put on your website. It's called priceguide.ai. I got an email literally this week. It came on Monday, and there was a shed manufacturer that put on Friday. They put this calculator on their website. Now, keep in mind, they've been doing They Ask You Answer, the shed company. They've been doing They Ask You Answer. Yet they put this pricing calculator on their website. And lo and behold, they got 20 plus leads over the weekend.
In a weekend?
In a weekend.
Wow.
20 plus leads.
Wow.
And we're going, now we've summer's over. So we're now starting to go into the off season.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they got 20 plus leads. It goes back to the core, pillars of trust with endless customers. You got to be willing to talk about what others aren't willing to talk about, show what others aren't willing to show, sell in a way others aren't willing to sell, and be more human along the way. Okay,
Love
those are the
that.
4 pillars, right?
Love it. Yep.
Well, what are they doing there with that calculator? They're definitely talking about showing and selling in a very different way than anybody else in their space, and they're enabling just like immediate gratification with the buyer, and because of that, they're getting huge lead flow. Since it's been out now, because I got another update from them today, they're averaging 10 leads a day. And in the last, since it's been up, which is almost a week, they've had 2 walk-ins alone of people that did the calculator and bought on the spot.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
they were doing they ask you answer.
Yeah.
They were doing it already.
Just got to lean into it more.
That's why I'm like, why am I beating this drum? Because I don't want you to go hungry. And I hate seeing businesses struggle, right? And so
Yeah, me too.
I've been there. I've looked over the precipice, and all self-service tools. Another one is Score App. I'm super hot on Score App right now.
Okay.
I love that for offering assessments. It's a great tool. It's a cheap tool. My friend Daniel Priest over there, he's got something great. So if you did Score App and Price Guide as a service-based business, especially, you'd be seeing leads like you hadn't seen in a long time.
Very cool. Thanks for dropping some of those tools. I have to check that out too because I haven't messed with that one yet. So I'm definitely, when we get off the show, I'm definitely going to go take a look at that one. But it also sounds like, and this is something that you're really good at and you're known for, there's like a mentality shift, right? Like you had this fire in 2008. There was a problem. Your consultants were like, you should just claim bankruptcy. And you were like, no, I'm going to figure out how to do this. I'm going to power through. How can other business owners and leaders that are like kind of comfortable and like, oh, this is the dip and this is just the normal cycle of things, how do they get into the mindset of being like, no, I'm not accepting this. This doesn't have to be a dip. I want to really put my foot on the gas and keep going. Because I feel like that's a big piece, is like getting in the right headspace, and it comes from the top down. It's like the leadership and the leadership team has to start there and have it trickle down through the whole organization, so people start to feel it and get pumped up and are tracking in the same direction.
This is probably one of the hardest to overcome. It is like, this is actually very, very difficult. There's this thing called the pride cycle, which affects every human, every company, every society. Imagine a circle, and at the top of the circle, you have success, prosperity. At the bottom of the circle, you have pain, frustration, right? Oftentimes when we're at the top, let's start at the bottom. Oftentimes when we're at the bottom of the circle, we're experiencing pain, frustration. We're not financially well, physically well, whatever that thing is.
Mm-hmm.
We say, I'm disgusted. I'm going to make changes. And we start to do things that we otherwise wouldn't have done. We're doing them because we're feeling pain. So we're relating more discomfort to our life continuing the way that it is than to the discomfort of doing the new thing that we haven't done before. Okay?
Wow. Okay.
And so because we start to do those little things, and that could be making the extra call, that could be knocking the extra door, sending the flyer, or whatever the thing is. Because we do the little things, now we're on the left side of the circle, moving our way back up. We start to experience success, more and more of it, until once again we reach prosperity and success.
Mm-hmm.
But then what happens? What happens is, because you're in a place of prosperity and success, you start to not do those little things again. You forget about the call. You forget about the knocking of the door. Maybe you don't do that training meeting that you should have been doing. And then you start to slide down the right side of the circle. As you're sliding down because you're not doing the little things, suddenly you find yourself at the bottom again with pain, discomfort, financial frustration. That's called the pride cycle. And it continues again and again and again, right?
Right.
And you see entire countries and civilizations have risen and fallen because of the pride cycle.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, it's not just business. This is like a psychological, like this happens to empires and to leaders and all that stuff. Yeah.
It happens with my fat belly, Alex, right? If, I eat too much during Thanksgiving. I step on the scales. I get annoyed. I do the work to lose it. And, I fluctuate. Me, 5 pounds is a lot, so I get funny about 5 pounds. But, some people, whatever. But
Right.
that's how we all do it.
Right.
And it takes that moment of disgust. And in the case of the little things is not eating that extra snack, not getting that extra plate, right? That's
Right.
how it works. That's
So
how
true.
it works.
So true. Yeah, very well said. So just to wrap everything up that we talked about here, and I've been doing this, I've been really trying to channel this, and this is your thing. And I love, out of the whole book of They Ask You Answer, this is one of my favorite things, is the one thing. So what is the one thing for people listening right now that they need to take in consideration, or like the most important thing we discussed for like making sure in these dips or in these slow seasons, you're doing everything you can to stay ahead of it?
I would say the most important thing of what we've talked about is you have to think like the farmer. You have to see ahead, anticipate, and plant the seed accordingly. Otherwise, you will be hungry. And that's the difference between the companies that offset seasonality versus the ones that do not.
Well said. Well said. Marcus, thank you so much for your time and for being on the show and providing your insights. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. And for everybody out there watching and listening, this is Endless Customers. I'm your host, Alex Winter. See you on the next episode.